This is Joseph Smith here with Lanie DeOrdio, who was a caregiver to a lovely mother and an aunt,
Yes.
both suffering from Alzheimer's disease. So I guess to get started, when did you first start noticing your mother, maybe even your aunt, having problems with, say, memory, some behaviors, things like that?
Well, I think it was in 2008. There were some financial dealings, and my mother, I noticed she couldn't balance her checkbook, and I found out that she had given money to someone who wasn't a family member. When I had asked her about it, forgot the amount, and that was kind of the start.
Is that something she normally would do, lend people large sums of money, or?
No, it was out of character. This was something that was just really out of context for her.
So at what point did you go and see a doctor or have your mother evaluated?
Well, it was after, that incident that we really actually followed up with just the family doctor who had put her on a small dose of Aricept. And after that, said that they would recommend if we wanted to see a neurologist.
So when she started the Aricept, did you notice any significant changes?
Subtle changes I did. It was a low dose, and she had been on it for a while, but I noticed that there were subtle changes with the Aricept, and I was pleased and I was happy. At that point, I didn't seek any further evaluation with anything since she was doing so well with that.
So since then, since your mother has been on a medication for the Alzheimer's, what behavioral changes, what symptoms has she progressively gotten worse over time?
Well, I think with her ADLs, with her hygiene, waking up in the morning, as you and I would get up and wash our face and brush our teeth, she doesn't think clearly about doing that. Excuse me. She would just think about getting dressed and not sensing that she needs to get washed and everything. That's the only thing I think has gotten progressively worse.
So what other changes, other than not being able to get up, take a shower on her own, do you think have changed in regards to, say, 10 years ago when she was herself, normal self?
Well, I think cooking, that used to be a big part of her life. She used to love to have us over for Sunday dinners, and she used to make her homemade pasta and the sauces. And she can't do that only because she physically, though, it has problems that she's compromised with. She wouldn't be able to stand at the stove long enough to prepare those. And I think, overall, her concentration with the things that, having family around that would make her happy, sometimes don't. And
so as a caregiver, what are some of the things, do you have any real life examples that bother you, things that interrupt your life or get in the way?
Well, the things as far as interrupting is that if my mom has a friend and she's talking to him on the phone, I won't know what the conversation is. And if we're planning to go out, 5 minutes, we had an incident where we were going to go out and the doorbell rang, answered the door, and it was her friend. And I said, well, we're getting ready to go out. I said, why are you here? And he said, well, didn't your mother tell you I was coming over? And I was like, no, she has Alzheimer's. She wouldn't tell me that. So, you kind of make the best out of it, but it's happened several times, and it's not an isolated incident where that happened. It's just whenever he talks to her on the phone, she'll make plans with him, and I won't know.
So when you're not around, or if you leave for a little while, what is that like? Does she get upset? Is that something that happens?
In the home surroundings, she probably wouldn't be as upset as if I left. I mean, she asks 1,000 times, where are you going, where are you going? If somebody that she knows is there watching her. If it's a strange surroundings, such as the first time that we came in for the study, she had that separation anxiety because she didn't want to be left alone with strangers. I think after the first few times she realized that it wasn't a bad thing. She got familiar with everybody. But at first, she goes through that where she doesn't want me to be too far, because then she'd get tearful and thinks that I'm, not going back for her. And it's the uncertainty of knowing what was going to happen that day.
So what happens if you aren't there, you're sick, or you have an emergency that you have to attend to?
Right, well, I would have to make arrangements for someone to come in to be with them because it's very unsafe to have them unsupervised for any period of time. They can get up and, fall, but they wouldn't know enough to get up to get the phone in case something did happen. To call 911.
How do you manage the finances?
Well, I'm actually doing 3 different checkbooks. My mother, it's a little bit harder for her because she's on a fixed income of, the Medicare, so that when she's in the hospital, you have to kind of borrow from Peter to pay Paul to get her medical bills, paid. But you juggle it somehow, and you have to be dedicated to taking care of them physically, which I do, and then mentally on the business aspect of doing their affairs.
So you say you've been doing this for several years now, caring for both your mother and your aunt. So how much longer do you see yourself doing it for?
As long as I can, but it is very tiring. It does get harder as the years progress. But I feel like I'm a giving person, and I want to do for them. My time for me is giving this interview now that I have somebody, with my mom and my aunt, so that hopefully people could see the trials and tribulations that, on a daily basis that one does go through, that to look for this time, this short amount of time, is worth the world to me, just to have that downtime, because you certainly need to have that.
So is there any dispersion in the family of responsibilities for the family members? Well,
I think a lot of family wants to see how well they're doing. I think that, they say how well they know I'm taking care of them, but do they offer? That's another thing. People will talk the talk, but when they actually, have a need to utilize their help and everything, it seems as though it's, far and few in between, those moments. I know they love my mother and my aunt, but it's a lot different being the one doing the major caregiving and having people just offer to come in and help.
So is there any professional help available, and how much does that actually help you? Do you see, does that make a difference in your life?
It would. I think that there probably are people that, could come in and help. But the other thing is that you have to remember, my mom and my aunt are used to me, and sometimes they're a little bit resistant to having somebody on the outside. I have to convince them to tell them, I need this time because I need a little break, and this person is very well, prepared and capable of taking care of you. It takes a little bit of convincing and everything, but if I had to, I could go to an outside, resource to get somebody.
Would you feel comfortable with someone else providing 100% of the support to your family members?
If I couldn't do it, I would say yes, the resources are out there. They would end up in a nursing home, but since I'm competent and I want to take care of them, because I know that as much as they would get the care and get what they need, the thing that would be missing is the emotional part of the care that I give them. And with that, I think it helps their spirit and, the longevity of their total care. I think the nursing home will do the job, but they couldn't give them what I would give them.
So you come from a medical or health professional background, and that gives you a little bit of an edge on caring for your family.
It gives me a little bit of an edge only because I've seen that side of, of what caring, entails. Anybody could do it if they are that caring individual, but realizing what work you have to put into it. I think the fact that I have based my whole professional career in the medical field, I have a better understanding, whereas someone that, doesn't have the awareness of this disease and, other diseases, I think it would be a lot harder. But I think through education and awareness, will show people that, you can do this, and you can find resources to help you,
Do you have any words of wisdom, so to speak, for someone who has to go to work every day and they have their mother or father at home and they can't give up their job and they're in a rock or a hard place. Is that? That's
Yeah, well, you know, the decision for me was that I was either going to work full-time and hire somebody to take care of my mom during the day when I was at work, only to come home to then do the work at night. So it was easier for me to make the decision to quit my full-time job so that I would take care of them full-time, whereas it's equal to having one job. Now, it's a 24/7 job, but the rewards that come with having, you know, my mother and my aunt happy is good enough for me. I'm not going to be rich, but I will at least be happy and have them happy, and as long as my bills get paid.
So in regards to self-care and taking care of yourself, you're doing all this work for your family. What is it that helps Lanie?
Well, what helps Lanie is that I at least get out once a month with girlfriends from my graduating class. We've just reconnected. I just had, you know, 40th high school reunion. And I've managed to be able to go out to dinner at least once a month to catch up with them. Because, you know, it is very hard being with my mom and my aunt and not having any peers to talk, you know, the everyday things that, you know, my age group would talk about. So I always make it a point to do that because it's my mental health too. And if I don't get that, I think you get to a point that you can really, you know, get burned out easily. But I do try once a month to get together with my girlfriends for dinner.
Going back again to the first time you may have seen a physician and they may have diagnosed your mother with Alzheimer's. What was that feeling like for you internally?
Well, I was angry. I was just angry that this was happening to her. And I was angry at myself because I thought I should have had the answer. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. And after being diagnosed, then when I did my own research, I found that understanding and, you know, putting it out there to try and be educated as much as I could be, I could help somebody else. Because once the anger, you know, got past, I was able to go into that mode of caregiver and understanding person. But as a daughter, I was just angry that it was the disease was going to take my mother away from me.
So the worry, does it carry over to worrying about yourself, your daughters?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to, if you didn't think about that, I mean, you would just be in denial. I mean, I think there are some of the questions that come up, just like if a family member has cancer, you wonder if you're going to get cancer. I just, you know, was kind of scared at that. But then when I found my family members were more scared than I was, I had to take the rein to making them understand, to saying, we'll get through this. This is why mom's like this, and you know, and we don't have to worry so much about the future right now. Let's just get her through this day to day, you know, with the disease.
So we know there's no cure, so to speak, for Alzheimer's. There's only symptomatic treatments. What do you see, or what would you like to happen in regards to new medicines and things along those lines?
Well, I mean, with the new studies that are out there, I mean, hopefully there will be another medication that could do even more slowing up the progression of the disease to kind of help. I mean, some people don't get cured of diabetes, but they take medication to control that. And I think with the Alzheimer's, because it's in, you know, the brain, there's medications and there's studies out there.
So when do you think maybe treatment or testing for people should be? Is there like an age where you might?
Well, you know, I mean, we do mammographies, we do colonoscopies. I think, you know, Alzheimer's, you know, for early onset, we could do some kind of blood testing, you know, as early as that, because, you know, I think in your 30s, even 40s, I think because when the brain function gets to a point where those neurons start dying, they're not going to come back. And I think with early detection, with maybe blood tests that could see the activity, or CAT scans or MRIs, whatever the testing is, will give early detection to see so that we can prevent it or slow it down before it gets, to a point that you can't return it.
So did you learn anything from your time participating in the research study?
I did. I actually learned a lot more about the disease, through the research and the different questions that, we had to answer regarding, my mom, and making all those little, the notes on the little changes that I would see in her that maybe without the study I wouldn't have noticed, or would have gone, without me commenting. The fact that I had to think about the little subtle changes, and I think through research and programs like this, it'll help somebody else. I mean,
so something was to work. What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see my mom in the program. I just think that it would be good. I think the awareness and having new technologies and new medicines and everything that are out there, I would like to see FDA-approved medicines, come, because it's the world that we're in today, and if we stop, that means that we've given up. So we need to just keep trudging forward to find, things that will help.
And if they did work on another level, where would you want to see Mom improve?
Well, right now, if she was at her base now, and if it wasn't to, get any worse than where she is now, I would be happy. I don't know if at this point her ADLs and any of that function will help, because she is 86, and I think that there's just certain parts of her body that don't work as well to help the other parts. So I would be happy at this baseline and keep her pleasant and on this track.
Do you feel like the medical community as a whole has spent enough time and their resources researching Alzheimer's?
No, I think that there's still room for more research. I'm not angry at the medical community. I just think that we need to have the research out there to educate, to show them that this disease is up and coming and being as prevalent as some of the cancers that are out there.
So what is one word, if you can sum it all up, that keeps you going and gives you hope?
Well, the hope would be the dedication that I have to my loved one, and in hopes that someday through research and studies that we would find a cure for this disease. The fact that it would help other families, and to know that even though the journey is a hard journey, and it's one that you really have to be dedicated to, it's the rewards are priceless, and and dedication to getting the disease cured would be phenomenal.
So what would you say to somebody, or a situation where an 80-year-old husband is taking care of an 85-year-old wife, where that it might not be as easy, so to speak?
Right. I mean, it's hard for me, and I'm not a spring chicken. I mean, I'm not as old as 80, but the thing is I think those situations, hopefully they have family members that are stepping up to help them, because I actually think it's just too hard for an 80-year-old husband to take care of an 80-year-old wife. I know he loves her, but there are some things that he probably physically can't provide and do for her that a younger person would be able to. Also, who's to say that his mental capacity isn't diminished in some sort at that age? I think you have to learn to accept help if it's offered.
How do they manage to take care of the older populations in the old days?
Well, I don't think that they have the medications, they don't have the technology to take care of some of the issues and the problems we had. I have two grandparents that died at an early age. My grandmother was 54, and I think my grandfather was 60 when they died. My mother comes from a family of 6 siblings, so back then the kids, basically, pitched in and helped. But I think that there weren't the medicines that may have, helped, with their medical conditions that they had.
So while taking care of mom, have you come across nursing homes, other caregiver options that you even considered, or
Yeah, I mean, not assisted living at this point, because obviously assisted living is trying to keep them as independent as possible. And at this stage, there's things, there are ADLs that, you know, her and my aunt can't do. So that wouldn't be the answer. As far as a nursing home, that would be considered, because they have specialty units where they have for dementia and for Alzheimer's patients. And I think, you know, they are giving, you know, specific care and keeping those people, you know, in a section. Well, it's the most demanding job, and it's yet the most rewarding job. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I just want people to know that it's probably the hardest job that you could ever do, being 24/7 with somebody, you know, but it is rewarding. I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I love my mother and I love my aunt, but I'd be kidding myself to say that it's a walk in the park, because it certainly isn't.